Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and recently I have talked about the two sessions, which is a very important, one of the most important events inside internal politics of China, which plots the next 5 years. What's the plan? What's the milestones for the GDP and whatnot? And I have expressed a lot of optimism and positivity towards what was said, because it was a very frank and honest, and a huge departure from what China used to do. China always was very propagandic, and they often put out some unrealistic numbers, which then after that they report some growth, which is like a bit hard to believe sometimes. And they are facing a lot of internal issues, but that 5 year plan was very realistic. It feels like there seems to be some change. And immediately right after, now we have the China Development Forum 2026, which opened in Beijing. So this comes at the same time where they also kind of shares their 5 year plan with the rest of the world, and is backed by a state-backed think tank, which is this one of the very very significant event as well. Before I continue, there's a lot of positive that's coming out from this as well. I just want to note that because of the geopolitical tensions in the East Asia, Southeast Asia region, no Japanese is going. So the Japanese have basically not go at all. And then the Middle Eastern CEOs, the top business leaders from Middle East, also cannot go because Iran war. And in fact, honestly, even if they go, they don't even know what to do now, because the entire economic structures and everything is going to be changing tremendously depending on what happened to Iran. Because if Iran isn't regime changed, that means they are still the same government that fires missiles and rockets and drones at all of them, which means they will essentially have a entirely different outlook for their economy, as they will basically have a Iran-sized Hezbollah next to them. It will be a totally different ball game. Investment will be hard to come in, and everything will be like in deep shit. So the Middle Easterns are not here. So in the end, the top executive that arrived in this forum are mostly Americans, which is super interesting. So let's take a look at the opening statements coming out from this event. You can see all the executives that have arrived. This is the Premier Li Qiang, which is also the guy that has made the main announcement about the 5 sessions, which I say is very positive. I wonder if he's going to take over Xi Jinping in the near future, because this is a lot of airtime for him. So anyway, this is the keynote speech. Like I said, this is super positive. I have to say, this is very unusual for China. So anyway, so Li Qiang basically says that I cannot use the big one. That's really very big. So China's commitment to work with all parties to promote balanced trade. That is insane. Like this is the second paragraph. This is China Web. This is China Daily. 中国网. Zhongxin Wang. This is China New News. China New News. EC, Electronic China. I don't know what's the English name for this news channel. So anyway, promote balanced trade. When the hell did China ever say they're going to pursue balanced trade? Never. It's never a thing. It's never a thing. They always are proud of their insane trade imbalances with the rest of the world, which I have said is what's holding up the whole Chinese economy right now. But it's not sustainable, because the whole world has found it very toxic. They are trying to move away, although it's very difficult as everything is produced in China right now. But China probably also realized how toxic this is for their diplomacy. Literally, no one can work with them, because no one can earn any money from China. How do you do business with a country which you can't make money from? Is going to be so unbalanced. And in the end, if you have followed my reporting, every bilateral meeting between China and any of these Southeast Asian countries, it's always the Southeast Asian countries asking China to buy more, to invest more, to throw money at them, which is exactly not what China was looking for last year. So there is a significant change. And then they say that they want to be the cornerstone of certainty, which is what the United States is not right now, and a harbor of stability, which China is somewhat is. However, they need a lot more transparency, for people to feel safe. They are largely very stable because they are authoritarian regime. Just like in Singapore, we are largely authoritarian, although we are a democracy, but they are communist. So, but generally speaking, stable is very important for investment. Like why I say money is moving out of Middle East is because it's super unstable right now, and it's going to stay unstable until Iran is regime changed. And for those that support Iran, it's okay. No, it's okay. No, I don't live in Middle East. If the money leave Middle East, I'm going to benefit because I live in Singapore. The money is going to come to Singapore. So, perfectly fine for me. I'm not coping at all. I'm just saying the reality. So, so you can also don't cope. It's okay. I perfectly support your point of view. So, anyway, so he said that the international landscape is undergoing profound and complex changes because the United States is fighting back against the trend of moving towards multipolar world, and they are largely succeeding. They have already consolidated most of the Americas, and they highlighted growing unilateralism and protectionism, which is United States, and disrupted international rules and order, which is also United States. So basically, he's noting the profound and complex changes in United States leadership of the world. So power politics is running rampant, acting with impunity, and call for uphold of fairness and justice to continue to grow louder. This is something that China cannot really say. So because this is what China does as well to the region. That's the reason why Japanese executives are not here. But what is more positive is upholdingness of openness, expanding free trade, prompting innovations. So he said that import-exports are conducted in the framework of fair trade. So now China is committed to advance high standard opening up, which is very funny, right? No, because they are still not open up yet. So they need to advance high standard opening up. Importing more high quality goods from other countries. When is the last time China ever says this? Like China never talks about importing high quality goods or importing more goods from other countries. Nearly never. So they want to open up further. This is something that a lot of people who are recently pro-China, because they maybe are too young, China is not that open up. They are open. They only open up what is beneficial to them. They basically close off everything else that is they still want control in. So they're not entirely open up yet. So that's why China is still a very closed economy. So they want to import more from other countries and work with other parties to make the global economic pie bigger, which is insane. This never happens. This one never ever was said by China ever. This is the first time I ever seen something like this. It's very super significant. Like I cannot emphasize how insane this is. Following up with what they have, this more pragmatic projection of the two sessions, this is a new China. It is not the old China. It's very, very interesting, which is why I say, is Li Qiang going to take over Xi Jinping? Because this looks very unusual. This is not the normal China. So acknowledging developments involve competition, they underline the need to view competition positively, which is also not a very China thing. China always view competition very negatively. Promote cooperation with pragmatic measures. So this means that they're going to cooperate, but they will do tariff. This is what they mean. So competitive advantage of Chinese industries is not achieved through subsidies and protection, but through persistent reforms and innovation-driven developments. This is full of bullshit, man. They have a lot of subsidies and protection. So it is entirely achieved by subsidies and protection. And persistent reforms is not persistent reforms. They basically have no rules. Put it that way. They have no rules, which is why innovation-driven development is possible. So I just want to correct some of the things he said. I don't think it's true. They have a lot of subsidies and protection for their industries, while they do not have a lot of rules for their own industries, which allows the industry to innovate very aggressively. Not like in European countries where there's a lot of red tapes, which makes innovation much harder. So this is of course this is a bit more propagandic. So they oppose disorderly and irrational competition, but under market economy conditions, healthy competition can stimulate greater development momentum. So China will strive to maintain market order of fair competition and willing to strengthen communication cooperation with all parties, which is, like I said, this is also very unusual. I feel like China, they usually don't say this kind of thing. Usually they don't. Like, no, they are very aggressive at trying to dominate markets. So this is, like I said, a bit different. Like you can see, even he said it himself. The 15 5-year plan is a new blueprint for the country's new growth, but also new opportunities for global development. So this is the entirely different kind of perspective, which is very, very good. So high quality development with stable economic growth, favorable business environment, national treatment for foreign enterprise for them to develop in the country with peace of mind and great success. So that's great. So Tim Cook is there, and then China EU is there, McDonald's is there. So all these are yeah. So that's the interesting news. So this is another version of the news. This is more Western. This is CNBC. So 30 over US executive is there. So there's iPhone with Tim Cook taking the stage. There's the Volkswagen was there as well. Second trip in a month. So what else do we have? Anything? So Apple still manufacture most of the phones in China. Not a surprise because they sell a lot in China as well. So what else? So they say make it easier for foreign business to access the country's services sector. Are you surprised that this is even a thing? Because it's not really a thing, because like I said, it's a closed economy, it's not that open. You can go in, you can do business there, but it's not the same as let's say you do business in the United States or in Singapore. It's different, they are much more, or let's say in Japan for that matter, so and say China will buy more healthcare and digital products, from abroad, which is also very interesting because they are a closed internet as well. So if you close your internet, most digital technological products cannot work. So let's see what they do. They dominated healthcare. So it's going to be interesting to see how this work as well. Maybe some of these cutting edge healthcare developments in the West is something that China will be interested in. There are some insane developments in overseas in United States. So state subsidies drove technological developments. He pushed back on the ideas. Okay, so he said that China have never pursued a trade surplus, and noted many products made in China by foreign companies are exporting back to their home market with profit accruing to the investors. So both is true. China did not deliberately pursue a trade surplus. This is, I can agree to a great extent. It just happens because of the way how they design the economy. So, and the way how they have encouraged all their different markets to dominate the whole world market by underpricing them. They didn't pursue the trade surplus. They pursue market domination. And when you dominate the market, you get trade surplus. So it's a bit of a interesting thing. He's not wrong, saying that China never pursued trade surplus. Trade surplus is a side effect of what they pursue, which is market domination. They will underprice everybody in the world, and then when everybody just buy for the cheaper products, they dominate the market. Over the years, everybody will just only buy from China. That's how they get the trade surplus. But it is also what is holding up the whole economy, because China's internal economy is not that good. It's not dead. It's just not good. It's not good in how generally we think of good economy. For example, it's deflationary. Things is good. The economy is getting smaller actually. So, but little bit. It's not very obvious. It's a little bit. depending on how you look at it. It can be a lot depending on how you look at it. So what else? Measures to support consumption, focus on trade-in subsidies, increment to social welfare. This is something that I've said the Chinese should do for a few years now. I already said China need to throw money at its people so that the people can buy more. So he was not invited this year. This economist, I think he's salty. He talked about consumer-led rebalancing. Yeah, like I say, even though he's a bit, I think he's salty, but that he's not invited. But it's he's not invited after 25 years attending. Why would he not be invited? So that's so interesting. But anyway, like I said, it's a positive because for them to transit, they need for them to really have a stable internal economy. The people inside the country need to be doing well. We are only seeing a small fraction of the Chinese population that is rich and well-to-do. Actually, the rest of the population is actually quite poor. It is not doing very well, and so it is a bit like you have a massive Chicago, in China, like maybe 70% of it. So it's important to create more opportunities to give people more money to buy more things, rather than this endless and more regulations, so that things, like I said, they have very little rules and regulations. They have, but the thing is that it's a wild west inside China. You have a lot of freedom inside of China. You just cannot bring this freedom out. You just don't have the freedom to go out. Inside of China is a wild west. It's very insanely competitive. They need to put some kind of a guardrail or some kind of a more higher standard in terms of product developments and everything, in terms of sales, so that people can earn a higher salary, they can do better, lesser trash products, so that everybody can grow inside of China. And this is I think is important. Okay. Oh no, the industry, the construction is coming back upstairs. So anyway, yeah, so this is and this is another one. This is the Japanese that's not coming. This is by the South China Morning Post. One of the more critical newspaper. This one is Hong Kong based. Yeah. Oh, I didn't have the login, so it's okay. So anyway, the whole point is there already. Like I said, the Japanese executive did not go due to the tensions. So anyway, I still have to say, positive developments. Looks like China is not going to end up in a World War III situation with Japan for now. For now. So we shall continue to monitor the situation, but so far these are all pretty positive developments. I like what Li Qiang says, but is Li Qiang right? Yeah, Li Qiang. So yeah, it is. But from experience, China say one thing, they often do another thing. So it's important to continue to keep a lookout whether they actually follow through with this strategic plan. If they do, and if they approach the whole world and global economy and competition in a positive manner, really continue to really open up the country, don't put so much guardrails on in terms of internet and everything. Yeah, maybe China will become that positive force that even I will endorse to counteract or counterbalance United States in the region. But for now, they're not. And the whole region is going to continue to depend on United States to counterbalance China instead. So that's about it. Thank you for watching. Press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.